Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, September 13, 2022. It's about 3:35 in the afternoon here on the East Coast of the United States. It's 10:35 in the evening in Kyiv, Ukraine, where my next guest, who joins us now, currently is, and where his video image is coming to us from. You may remember Matt Van Dyke. Matt is the founder of the Sons of Liberty International, a non-belligerent group aiding the Ukrainians in their fight against Russia. He risks his life every day. He's risking his life as we speak. Matt, it's a pleasure. Welcome back to Judging Freedom, where you know you always have a home.
Thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Of course. So give us your from your personal observations, the status of the military relationship now between Russian forces and Ukrainian forces.
Well, the Russians have had to withdraw from was essentially northeastern Ukraine recently. Ukraine had announced a counteroffensive that they've been planning for months, and it started on August 29th with some attacks in the south near Kherson, which was partially a head fake on the Russians. So when they sent troops down to there, then Ukraine sent a force in the northeast that is pushed and taken anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 square kilometers of territory, depending on what the source is. The Russian morale is broken. They fled, leaving behind not only weapons and ammunition, but also even vehicles. It appears they had a complete breakdown in command and control and communication between the forces. And it's been a stunning counteroffensive. I mean,
are the reports that we get here in the States, mainly from mainstream media, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, of Russians literally dropping their handheld weapons and deserting their heavy machinery and literally running away from it? Are those reports accurate? And if so, are they accurate on a large scale, or are they just a little here and a little there anecdotal?
No, it's accurate. There's plenty of video footage coming off YouTube and other sources shot from the front line. There's even things said by Russians themselves when they've been captured. It was a very quick lightning strike that the Ukrainians did, and the Russians just fled. A lot of these Russian forces were not the best forces that Russia has. Some of them were Russia-backed local separatist forces. Some of them were Russian National Guard, but they were clearly not prepared for this. They don't have the morale to fight, and they're ditching the uniforms, changing into civilian clothes, and trying to get out alive.
Were the events of the past 3 weeks that you've just described, in your opinion, a turning point, or just a one-off, or something else?
I think this is a unique situation that occurred where they had Kherson to use as a diversion to get the Russians to put forces down there, and the region that they attacked may have been a lot less heavily defended by the Russians. However, it comes at a critical time because winter's approaching, and where the front lines settle in when the weather gets bad and the ground hardens up, and it becomes a lot more difficult to dig trenches for what is still going to be largely an artillery war for now. Pushing the Russians back like this changes where they're going to be when they start fighting again in the spring, where they're going to be through winter, the anxiety of the Russian military and hopefully the Russian public when they look at a map and see that right before winter this occurred. It goes way beyond just the battlefield success. The battlefield success may be being hyped a bit because a lot of it was just Russians routing and not much fighting. But for the overall conflict, it's a very positive development, and one that has implications that even go to now there being more public criticism of Putin, or at least of Russian military within Russia, where people that are supportive of the war now are saying that they need to go to full mobilization and criticizing the Russian military and wondering how this disaster happened. It's opened up rifts in Russian public opinion, and we'll see where that leads. But, it's an extraordinary development. But one
Go ahead. Continue, please.
One that's bound to happen. In previous appearances, I said that the Russians have very low morale. And my organization works training Ukrainian forces. So we know their morale because we're with them day in, day out, and training them, having conversations with them, seeing what their capabilities are. We know that they'll never stop fighting, no matter what the cost is. And they want to liberate their entire country, not only Donbass, but also Crimea, all the way up to the border with Russia.
In the process of you and the Sons of Liberty International training the Ukraine troops, have you come across American military out of uniform also doing some training, whether it's training in basic skills or whether it's training in the use of sophisticated American and NATO supplied military equipment?
No, we haven't seen any presence on the ground other than veterans like those that served with their organization or ones that came over on their own who are doing training. The NATO is training Ukrainian forces, but they're training them outside of the country, and they're generally training them on systems like the HIMAR rocket artillery system. But the infantry training and so on is still being done in Ukraine by Ukrainian forces or by organizations like ours.
Is it fair to say that the Ukrainian troops are benefiting from American and British intelligence?
Oh, absolutely. I believe most likely the planning for this counteroffensive was, a lot of it was done in DC and coordinated with the Ukrainians. Our intelligence capability is far beyond theirs. We can see in real time what the Russians are doing, with satellite technology that the Ukrainians just don't have the level of access to. So undoubtedly, Ukraine's getting a lot of support from the U.S. and NATO, and would not, have this level of success probably without that. But
right.
Then it was, NATO and the U.S. are full in on this war. They're not going to lose this to Russia. So if you're a betting person and you're going to think about who's going to win this, for the U.S. and NATO to lose now would be catastrophic and completely unnecessary. There's no reason they would lose. They've signaled that they're going to keep supplying weaponry to Ukraine until this is finished, and there's no reason to believe that they're going to stop. So, there's just going to be more of this in the future as Russia gets pushed back to the border over the next couple of years.
Let me run a clip of Colonel Douglas McGregor, West Point, 20 or 30-year career in the Army, retired as a full bird colonel, who is a harsh critic of American support for Ukrainians. The Ukraine sees of the view that we're extending a war that the Ukrainians are destined to lose, and that we're causing bloodshed, which is not necessary. So we have two clips from him. We'll run the first one, we'll let you comment, and then we'll run the second one, and of course, let you comment.
Ukrainians have probably lost 60, 70,000 killed, over 100,000 casualties easily. They've got nothing left. And the pipeline, which was never very good in terms of delivering equipment and ammunition, has dwindled. It's almost turned off. And you add the corruption into this business, with so much of the equipment disappearing onto black markets and being resold, the war is effectively lost.
The war is effectively lost. That was about 2 weeks ago, let's say right around August 29, when the Ukrainian offensive began. What would you say to Colonel McGregor if he were here, and what do you say to those Freedom Watch fans who listen to what the colonel has to say?
I'd suggest he comes on over in the situation for himself. Happy to take him around and show him the units and what their equipment and capabilities are. It's interesting the timing of those comments, because that was a few weeks after HIMARS started arriving and knocking out Russian artillery at quite long ranges. So there hasn't been a supply issue. And if there's corruption in every country, and it's always a problem, especially in this part of the world, but I haven't heard too many complaints about it here. And from the forces we train, at the beginning of the war, they were short supplied. Now they have body armor. Nearly every soldier we train has body armor. At least one unit recently upgraded their weapons from AK-74s to a more modern Russian assault rifle. A Polish assault rifle. They're getting surprising numbers of equipment and things that any other force in the world that has been fighting against an invasion or dictator would love to have.
Before we run the next clip of Colonel McGregor, which is similar to what he just said, but the tone is just as harsh. Is it fair to say that the Ukrainians would be on their backs now were it not for American and NATO military aid?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no denying that. But again, this is a fight for the international system, for modern civilization, for the way of the Western world. And all of us are in this together. So NATO and the U.S. has taken a stand against Russia, against expansionism. And there's no shame in that we're helping out Ukraine. The Ukrainians are doing the heavy lifting. They're the ones suffering the casualties. But yes, without NATO support, the battlefield would look a lot different than it does today.
Here's Colonel McGregor again from the same interview, Matt.
The Russian army is back, and they are crushing the remainder of the Ukrainian defenses in the south in preparation, I think, for a strike to Odessa. And this will make Ukraine a landlocked country. And I think we're going to see something similar in the near future up in Kharkov.
Matt.
I'm sure he would revise the comments now. That's...
In fairness to him, they are 2 or 3 weeks old.
Yeah, the 2 or 3 weeks changes a lot, especially now with the counteroffensive. And every day, the HIMARS are taking out the Russian artillery that was such a big problem earlier in the war. I mean, there's even been a strike into Crimea by Ukrainian forces. So it's a vastly different battlefield than it was when he made those assessments, in all fairness to him.
Let me run a clip of you, which I think is the last time you were on with us, which was a few months ago, to show your consistency and your fidelity in the belief that the Ukrainians can triumph. A lot of the guests that Freedom Watch has on, former high-ranking and well-respected intelligence and military people, have told us that Russia is destined to win, that its superior manpower and superior firepower can never be overcome. What do you say about that?
I say it's easier for them to make such assessments from a cubicle or from behind a computer desk. What we see here is that Russian casualties far outnumber those inflicted on Ukrainians. Russia's great military devastated by particularly Javelin missiles supplied by the West. We see Russian soldiers that surrender and run, logistics problems.
Now, my hat is off to you because you said that 3 months ago and you're able to say it again today. How does this end? I mean, what Putin can't afford politically, he can't stay in office if they lose, if Russia is chased out of Ukraine. He can't stay in office if Ukraine becomes a free, independent country, again, pro-West. How do you see this ending?
I don't know. Probably with Putin's death, natural causes or something else. I mean, people around him would have to remove him, but those set to succeed him are not much better. So, where this ends up, who knows? It's still probably going to be a couple more years of war, so there's time for that to be figured out. But, the Ukrainians are completely resolved to liberating every square mile territory that they have, and that includes Crimea. They're not going to back down either, nor should they. Putin is in a very tough position, but it's not a democracy there. So as long as people around him don't betray him, he'll be just fine, and this could drag on. But really, it's headed in the direction of a Russian defeat, where there's not much that they can do at the rate that they're losing forces, unless they go to full mobilization, and then they're going to be conscripting people and drafting people that want to fight even less than the troops they already have there.
I'm fascinated with the presence of Americans on the ground, and we spoke earlier in this interview, and you said you hadn't seen any. I mean, the president, Joe Biden, either intentionally or a slip of the lip, made reference when he was addressing American troops in Poland to those that had just been to Ukraine. Colonel McGregor, former Marine Corps Major Scott Ritter, two of our go-to guys, have both said their sources tell them that there are dozens, maybe hundreds, of American troops on the ground out of uniform, which, as you know, is dangerous under the Geneva Conventions. They could be captured and summarily executed as spies, but out of uniform, not with weapons, and providing the same type of training that the Sons of Liberty are providing. So if you come across these guys, maybe women as well, please let us know, because I'm fascinated with this subject matter of how Americans can be there with the government knowing it and without the protection of international law. Now, if my hat is off to your courage and your bravery, Matt. Anything else you want to tell us?
If there's any veterans out there who are interested in coming over and volunteering to help train, and the public that would like to make a donation to help support my guys over here, we're at sonsoflibertyinternational.com. We really need help. This is a mission that has had some funding challenges, but we're making do with what we have. We've trained several hundred Ukrainians, and some of our forces have been tested in combat and done extremely well. So it's a proven concept. We've been doing this for over 7 years, starting in Iraq in the fight against ISIS. And we really need your support. And thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the risks you take. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.